I was also asked to talk briefly about some funding, specifically USDA funding that's available for this type of work. I've had the distinct pleasure of coordinating and leading the USDA Migratory Big Game Initiative here in Wyoming. Started as a pilot project a few years ago, and then moved on to a full-blown initiative that's helped with some of the research you've heard today, but also done a lot with conservation practices and conservation easements. But I always like to highlight that we've been working in this arena for a long time. This initiative started in 22, but historically, Wyoming NRCS has worked with a lot of these groups on this call to try to address this issue. Historically, we had a regional conservation partnership program. That's what RCPP is for those of you that don't speak NRCS. That's a partnership program that provides funding to a partner to address a particular resource concern in a particular geography. In this case, we partnered with the Nature Conservancy. I think Sarah's on the call, and they had two versions of this called Securing the Grass Highway. And a lot of that funding, it's about $11.5 million total, I believe, has gone to addressing fence resource concerns along with easements and other things. In addition, we've used some Joint Chiefs funding over the years. That's a program where the chief of the NRCS works with the chief of the Forest Service to kind of address that public-private kind of interface to do some things for a particular resource concern. We've done lots of fence work with that. And then also, at the state level and local level with NRCS, we've always had some sort of sub-account that we can draw some amount of funding for this type of work. And then obviously partnering, everything we do is in that vein. But, kind of the poster child for how this could work is Sublette County. Prior to any initiative, I think from 2017 to 2022, we assisted with about 175 miles of fence work. So there are other ways to do this outside the initiative, but certainly the initiative has brought some other resources to the table, specifically funding. As I mentioned, this started in 2022, really at the push of Arthur Middleton and then our undersecretary at the time, Robert Bonney, who honestly just has a soft spot in his heart for the greater Yellowstone area and really wanted to do something here, was aware of this issue. And so we started this effort in 22, but honestly, really, it was just expanding on those existing partnerships that we already had. I'm very fortunate in my career as a state biologist here. We've had a great working relationship with Game and Fish, lots of other partners to help share data and apply conservation in the best places possible. And this just allowed us to step that effort up. So we used existing programs, namely our Environmental Quality Incentive Program, we call it EQIP, and then our easement program, Ag Conservation Easement Program, or ASEP, are kind of the main tools in the NRCS toolbox that we've used. And then we have a whole slew of practices we can apply through this initiative. I think there's about 165 on our tech guide that we can use, and a subset of those are eligible for big game. But really, fence has been the stalwart in this all along. As you've heard, that it's a target-rich environment when it comes to fence in Wyoming. There's lots of it, and we hope to continue to address it as best we can. But a big thing, part of this effort has been more targeted outreach, working with partners and our field staff to reach out to particular landowners that might be interested in this kind of work and really putting the money in the right places as best we can. So really to date, here's really kind of the take homes. It's been really a fence-driven initiative and an easement-driven initiative. Those have been our primary takers. Here's those notes we just talked about that we've helped with those efforts. We've also done, in addition to fence work, we've done some monitoring associated with that with one of our wildlife practices. There's a picture that came from one of those efforts I thought was pretty interesting. So, and now just kind of for the numbers, everybody wants numbers, this effort. So in FY22 and 23, we received $10 million in our EQIP program. That's a pretty good bump in our EQIP investment. Usually we're operating statewide for all of our sub-accounts. You're usually talking somewhere in the 15 to 20 million range, so an extra 10 million, that's substantial. There's what we were able to get done. Again, the main practice was fence. That ticked down a little bit in FY24 and 25 when Montana and Idaho came to play, but still a substantial increase in funding there. And it's worth noting that the demand for this program far exceeds our funding. Both of those, you see kind of the number of contracts we've written, but we've always received almost twice as many applications as we've been able to fund. Just a little, I don't have exact numbers on fences, but I think it's pretty safe to say that each year we've been able to help with probably close to 200 miles of fence work in the state of Wyoming, and really prioritizing removing fences. And then if we can't remove them, replacing them with something that's more wildlife friendly. On the ASEP front, easement front, there's the numbers. Again, we didn't get any money in 22, but in 23, we received about 8.3 million, which was a huge increase from what we've normally been operating under. For probably the last 5+ years, statewide, we've received about $5 million a year for conservation easements in Wyoming. So yeah, more than double that year. That number's ticked down a little bit, and you see the acres vary quite a bit. Anybody that's looked at real estate in Wyoming, the number of acres you can get under easement varies drastically depending on where they're at. But again, lots of demand for this program, and trying to permanently protect those best habitats that are out there within those migration corridors with this program, and working with land trust partners all the way here. Just real quick about Montana and Idaho, when this became a full-blown initiative in FY23, they were brought on board. They got less funding, but they run their program slightly different than we do. Their coordination with their state partners is a little bit different, but there's some basic numbers. More easement heavy, specifically in Montana, but both of them doing quality work through EQIP and ASEP on this effort. I'll throw this link in the chat too if you want more on numbers and kind of what it's all about, and then also a little bit about how Farm Service Agency, our sister agency, plays in this arena. You'll be able to get some more of that information here. You can also just Google this if you like. And then I always get the question about what's the future of this, and I really wish I knew. Like I said, there is big demand for this program, and I like to think that it's got broad support. So. But we certainly have a new administration. We're trying to figure out what their priorities are and how this will fit in. There's also the likelihood of a new farm bill this year, so how this will play, we really don't know. All that being said, we take sign up all the time, and so if you're working with a landowner that's interested in some of this type of work, encourage them to come into our office, sign up. That helps us show demand for the program and keep things moving forward. Hopefully, we'll be able to slip some of this money into the future here. And with that, I'll wrap it up and turn it back over to Jill and Andrew.
Hey, Brian, right on schedule. Questions for Brian? Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And if this is maybe needs to be saved for the discussion, but I'm just curious, does it kind of go from both sides, from the landowner up and then from you guys down? And then are you guys tying into any of the prioritizations that we've talked about today in terms of getting those done on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Comes both ways, as I think Melanie talked about and others have talked about. The cost of a fence is expensive. So we've always had interest in assistance with fences. It's nationwide. It's one of NRCS's most popular practices that we do, good, bad, or otherwise, which kind of urge this effort on. But yeah, certainly, I think to prioritize the effort, us reaching down and partners reaching down have been key to help putting that funding in the best place possible. As far as trying to do that, yes, we've tried to take pieces of that prioritization piece as far as geography and type of fence and incorporate that into our EQIP ranking, which was an internal process we do to try to prioritize the best things. But honestly, we could probably do a little better job there. That's something we're looking to tweak for this next year if we get some funding.
Last but certainly not least, we have Jill Randall with Wyoming Game and Fish. Jill, pass it back to you.
All right, thank you. You guys made it to almost the end. I'm excited about the discussion after this, but I'm also going to kind of break the mold a little bit, and I don't have a PowerPoint. So yes, stand by. I am sharing, though, some information about the Pooled Migration Fund, which is what I'm here to talk about. I am a stand-in for Chris McBarnes, who was not able to make it here today. He is the executive director of the Wildlife Fund. The Wildlife Fund was created in 2019 by the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission. It's our official nonprofit partner for the department. They really work to support wildlife projects that help Wyoming's ecosystem and conservation efforts. Many focuses, but just one that I want to talk about today is the Pooled Migration Fund. We wanted to mention this because it's one of the newer funding sources that's out there. Maybe some of you haven't heard of it or aren't necessarily aware of it yet, but all of those good old mainstays, like starting with NRCS, if you have a landowner that's interested in planning and funding for projects, that's all still in play, but we wanted to mention the Pooled Migration Fund for you. So it was developed to support the Big Game Initiative through USDA in Wyoming, which you just heard about from Brian. The idea was, to really try to work with producers, landowners, tribal partners across Wyoming, and try to bring these components out to more new landowners, different landowners, kind of increase the capacity for our federal partners to be able to implement this program. And one of the first things we identified right out of the gate is, more funding is great, that, Wyoming NRCS received a bunch of additional funding, but it really takes bodies on the ground to get this information out there to landowners, particularly trying to bring new people to the table and to do the planning effort, because money is only only part of the equation. You've really got to get the good projects developed and planned along the way. So part of one of the first efforts the Pooled Migration Fund did was worked on capacity building. So the Wyoming Stockers Land Trust, Jackson Hole Land Trust, Western Landowners Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, and Greater Yellowstone Coalition all were provided with grants to hire additional personnel to help increase the capacity of this program to get out to additional people and just increase that delivery of the program to more landowners. Additionally, there's been an effort to fund on-the-ground projects, some of which you'll see highlighted in the document I have shared here. That comes out of the annual report that the Wildlife Fund puts together each year, just kind of highlighting a few components. So cheatgrass work in Carbon County, juniper removal in the Baggs mule deer herd, fence modifications in Sublette County, fence inventory west of Cody. A lot of these things we've heard about today, which is great. Fence modifications in Platte Valley. The Red Desert fence modification project you heard about from Hall and Amy. All of those were projects that have been funded in part through this Pooled Migration Fund. And most recently, which again you heard about already today, but Knobloch Family Foundation provided a significant award to fund the fence coordinator position and a lot of implementation in the Red Desert. They've now invested over $2 million since their inception, and I think it's really exciting to see the new funders that Chris has been able to bring to Wyoming, just kind of new foundations, different players, new money, if you would. And so that's been exciting to really be able to ramp up our ability to get work out on the ground. So Chris wanted me to pass along that they're still determining how to allocate project funding later this year for 2026 fieldwork. He does have some funding already in place and working with additional funders to kind of grow that pot. Wanted to just kind of put that on your radar to watch for that opportunity. It is targeted in the priority areas for the Big Game Initiative, that partnership. So for this specific Pooled Migration Fund, those geographies that Brian showed on that map are the target areas for spending those dollars. In addition to the Pooled Migration Fund, I just kind of want to give a shout out. There's a ton of other funding partners that are out there that all of us are hopefully continuing to work with. And I know, WWNRT, Game and Fish, through some of our different programs, including the Trust Fund, Mule Deer Initiative, et cetera, Big Game License Coalition, Sagebrush Local Work Groups. NIFWIF has been involved with funding some programs, Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program, Mule Deer Foundation, Muley Fanatics, Bow Hunters of Wyoming, and industry partners have all been really important contributors to some of these partners. Everybody likes to see matching funds and see their funds getting leveraged. So in addition to this kind of newer source of funding, just wanted to continue to give a shout out to a lot of our other consistent partners that have been playing in this arena for quite some time. That's all I have.